Do you know why narcissistic abuse victims stay silent about their pain? It's a heartbreaking truth that many of them feel trapped in a constant struggle to speak up. Yet somehow, the words never come. They often feel like they're not allowed to have feelings, or that no one will understand the depth of what they've gone through. Silence becomes their only refuge, even when they desperately want to scream. But why do so many victims choose silence over seeking help? Let's dive into the reasons behind this painful choice. Are you ready for number 1? They think no one will believe them, because the narcissist is too nice. If a tree falls in a forest and no one is around to hear it, does it make a sound? Now, imagine that tree is you, and the forest is filled with people who only see the narcissist's charming, generous side. That's exactly why many victims of narcissistic abuse stay silent. They fear no one will believe them. Narcissists are experts at crafting a spotless public image, playing the role of the perfect partner, friend, or co-worker. Dr. Ramani Durvasula, a leading psychologist in narcissistic abuse, explains, the narcissist's public and private personas are so drastically different that the victim starts to question their reality. So, when victims try to speak out, they're often met with disbelief or even blame. This doubt leaves victims feeling isolated, as if their pain is invisible. It's a brutal cycle. The narcissist wears a mask of kindness, while the victim is left screaming into the void, unheard and alone. Let's talk about number 2, shame and embarrassment. Why didn't you just leave? That's the question that plays over and over in your mind, even before anyone else asks it. And when they do, it stings. Victims of narcissistic abuse often feel ashamed, not just for what happened, but for letting it happen. You start blaming yourself, thinking, how did I not see the signs? But narcissists don't show their true colors right away. They slowly break you down, using love bombing, guilt, and manipulation to make you doubt yourself. As Dr. Judith Herman, author of Trauma and Recovery, explains, shame is the lie someone told you about yourself. And narcissists are master storytellers, making you believe you are weak, foolish, or even deserving of their cruelty. The real problem is that society doesn't always understand emotional abuse. People expect bruises and scars, not the invisible wounds narcissists leave behind. So, instead of sympathy, victims often face judgment which only deepens their shame. That's why many victims stay silent. It feels safer to carry the pain alone than risk being misunderstood. Let's move on to number 3. Fear of retaliation. The most dangerous predator is the one who feels threatened. And if there's one thing narcissists can't stand, it's being exposed. They thrive on control, so when a victim speaks up, they see it as a direct attack. That's why many survivors stay silent, because they know the narcissist won't just let them walk away peacefully. Dr. Christine Louis de Canonville, an expert on narcissistic abuse, calls this the narcissistic rage response. When their carefully crafted image is threatened, they lash out, using whatever means necessary to silence the victim. Maybe it's a smear campaign, where they twist the story to make you look like the abuser. Maybe it's character assassination, where they spread lies to your family, friends, or even your employer. Or maybe it's outright threats, reminders that they know things about you and won't hesitate to use them. But here's the truth. Narcissists' biggest fear is the world seeing them for who they truly are. And that means your voice, no matter how shaky, is more powerful than you think. Now, let's continue to number 4. minimization of their pain. If you tell a lie big enough and keep repeating it, people will eventually come to believe it. Now, imagine that lie is the one you tell yourself, like it wasn't that bad. After being gaslighted and belittled for so long, you start minimizing your pain. Maybe the narcissist constantly compared your suffering to others, saying, "You think you have it bad. Other people have real problems." Or maybe they made you feel like you were overreacting, telling you, "You're too sensitive. Stop being so dramatic." Over time, these words become your inner voice, making you doubt your reality. Dr. Beverly Engel, author of The Emotionally Abused Woman, calls this discounting, where victims downplay their trauma to cope with it. It's a survival mechanism, but it also keeps you stuck in silence, believing your pain isn't valid enough to be acknowledged. But here's the truth. Pain isn't a competition. Just because someone else has been through something different doesn't make your experience any less real. You wouldn't tell a person with a broken arm that their pain doesn't matter because someone else broke both legs. So why do that to yourself? Dr. Stephen Stockholm, author of Living and Loving After Betrayal, explains, "Emotional injuries don't just heal with time, they heal with acknowledgement. And that starts with recognizing that what you went through was real and did hurt. The longer you minimize it, the longer it controls you. Your pain matters, whether or not anyone else sees it." You shouldn't miss number 5. Stockholm Syndrome. Why would you protect the person who hurt you? It sounds crazy from the outside, right? But when you've been trapped in narcissistic abuse, your brain doesn't work in black and white anymore. You start justifying their actions, saying things like, "They didn't mean it," or "They had a rough childhood." In a twisted way, it feels safer to believe they love you than to face the truth that they don't. This is called Stockholm Syndrome, a term originally used to describe hostages who develop emotional bonds with their captors. Dr. Joseph Carver, in his paper Love and Stockholm Syndrome, explains that victims begin to see escape as impossible and instead focus on survival, which often means keeping the abuser happy. That's why so many victims defend their abuser, even when others can see the truth. It's not because they're weak. It's because their mind has been trained to equate love with suffering. And breaking that cycle takes more strength than most people will ever understand. Are you still up for number 6? Guilt and self-blame. What if it really was my fault? That's the question that plays on a loop in your mind after being manipulated by a narcissist. They don't just hurt you. They make you feel like you deserve it. Every time they cross the line, they had an excuse, saying, "You made me do it," or, "If you hadn't said that, I wouldn't have reacted this way." Over time, you start believing it. Psychologist Dr. Craig Malkin, author of Rethinking Narcissism, says, "Narcissists survive by making sure they are never wrong, so someone else must always take the fall. And that someone is you. And once you think you're the problem, why would you tell anyone? Why would you seek help if you believe you're the one who ruined everything?" But here's what they don't want you to realize. The fact that you feel guilty at all means you're not a narcissist. A real abuser never questions themselves. So the next time that voice creeps in telling you it was your fault, remind yourself that that's not your voice. That's theirs. Let's keep it moving to number 7. Social stigma of playing the victim. Nobody likes a victim. That's the unspoken rule society pushes, isn't it? We celebrate the strong ones, the ones who power through pain without a tear, without a complaint. But if you speak up, you're called a complainer, attention seeker, or even a victim. This stigma is so strong that many people would rather suffer in silence than risk being judged. Dr. Judith Herman, author of Trauma and Recovery, explains that society prefers to silence victims because their stories disrupt the illusion that the world is fair. People don't want to hear that someone as charming as the narcissist could be abusive. So instead of confronting that uncomfortable truth, they dismiss the victim, telling them to move on or stop being dramatic. And that's exactly how abusers keep their victims quiet. And because no one wants to be labeled weak, you start thinking, maybe it's better if I just keep quiet. But here's the truth. Speaking up isn't weakness, it's power. Silence protects the abuser. Your voice sets you free. Here comes number 8. Fear of smear campaigns. The truth is easy to hide when the liar tells it first. That's the brutal reality of dealing with a narcissist. By the time you even think about speaking up, they've already poisoned the well. They go on a preemptive strike, whispering lies to your friends, twisting stories at work, and maybe even planting doubts in your own family's mind. Dr. Shannon Thomas, author of Healing from Hidden Abuse, calls this a smear campaign, a deliberate effort to discredit victims before they can expose the truth. Narcissists know exactly what they're doing. They paint themselves as the real victim while making you look irrational, unstable, or even dangerous. And because they can be so charming in public, people believe them. You start to wonder, if no one will believe me, what's the point of speaking out? This is how they trap you, by isolating you and cutting off your support before you even notice. And so, you stay silent, not because you don't have a story to tell, but because you're afraid no one will listen. But here's the thing. The more people understand the narcissist's tactics, the less control these abusers have. And that is why your truth still matters. Moving on to number 9. Emotional blackmail. If you leave me, I don't know what I'll do. Sounds familiar? That's emotional blackmail in action. Narcissists are masters at using guilt, fear, and obligation to keep you silent. Dr. Susan Forward, author of Emotional Blackmail, explains that abusers use threats, both direct and subtle, to control their victims. They might cry and say they can't live without you, or hint that they'll harm themselves if you expose them. And because you have empathy, you start feeling responsible for their well-being. You think, what if something happens to them? What if I make things worse? And just like that, you're trapped, keeping their secrets out of fear that speaking up will make you the villain. The worst part is that narcissists know exactly what they're doing. If tears and self-pity don't work, they'll switch to anger, accusing you of being cruel, selfish, or even dangerous for wanting to leave. But here's the truth. You are not responsible for managing their emotions. Someone who truly loves you wouldn't use threats or guilt to keep you silent. They wouldn't break you just to keep themselves from falling apart. Finally, we're down to number 10. Gaslighting has made them doubt reality. Maybe I'm just overreacting. Maybe it didn't happen the way I remember. If you've ever had these thoughts after dealing with a narcissist, you're not alone. Gaslighting is one of their most powerful weapons. It's not just lying. It's rewriting reality until you don't even trust your memory. Dr. Robin Stern, author of The Gaslight Effect, explains that narcissists use gaslighting to erode your confidence in your perception of reality. They deny things they said, twist events, and make you feel like you're the problem. Over time, you start second-guessing yourself, wondering if you're the crazy one. And if you can't even trust your mind, how can you explain it to anyone else? This is why many victims stay silent. They fear being dismissed or proving the narcissist's claims that they're unstable or too sensitive. Narcissists know how to flip the script, playing the role of the reasonable one while making you look irrational. But here's the truth. If you feel like something is wrong, trust that feeling. Gaslighting works by making you doubt yourself, but deep down, you already know the truth. In the end, the silence of narcissistic abuse victims isn't about not wanting help. It's about fear, shame, and confusion. They've been made to feel small, and speaking up can feel like risking everything. But here's the thing. Silence isn't a sign of weakness. It's often a survival mechanism. The more we understand why victims stay silent, the easier it becomes to offer the support they need when they're ready. If you or someone you know is in this situation, remember that healing starts when we break the silence, one step at a time.